Dear beautiful souls, today I want to talk to you about a topic that every one of you has to ultimately face if you want to be effective in your spiritual practice. I remember one of the founders of cognitive behavioral therapy, Dr. Albert Ellis, he used to say the following thing: there are three musts that hold us back. I must do well, you must treat me well, and the world must be easy. And it is exactly a description of the egoic belief. And yes, of course, beliefs hold us back because beliefs are a distortion of reality. They're not the isness of it, they're an interpretation of it. So whatever we see through the construct of our thoughts is already warped. But there's a more deeper and more hidden meaning in it. It points to the truth that compassion does not mean I have to be nice to you, or you have to be nice to me, or we have to be nice to anybody. Niceties are there when we don't respect each other. Niceties are there when you meet somebody at the corner of the crossroads, somebody that you believe you will never see again, and you exchange pleasantries. This is a way of showing that you do not see conflict. This is a way of showing that you're peaceful and that you want to go about your day. But within spiritual practice, being nice is often extremely harmful. Because most human beings carry huge amount of hidden pride. And the reason people are nice is to not trigger that pride in others, because when people's pride is triggered, they have narcissistic anger responses. And there's a potential for verbal violence. There's a potential for conflict in the neighborhood. There's a potential for conflict in the family. So we're being nice to circumvent, to avoid. And it is a survival mechanism, but it is not compassion. Compassion is to point out somebody's illusions. And that is initially always painful, simply because when a human being has pride, the pride is there to cover up shame. That is the truth of the mechanism of it. So when as a child or as a teenager or in other lifetimes you experience rejection, as all human beings have, and you felt ashamed about being yourself, then there's a temptation to develop ego. That means an artificial construct of yourself, a trauma vehicle basically, that protects you from further trauma, or so is the belief. So egos are constructed when we read our environment and we feel our environment is not safe, and our survival instinct, our brain, tries to predict how we have to be in order not to be a target of any form of violence or attack. So then we start being nice with people. And the niceties will never go after somebody's narcissism, because again, that means danger. You cannot go after somebody's narcissism. They might go mad, they might do something. And for some reason, many in the Buddhist community are nowadays convinced being nice is being compassionate. But it's the very opposite. It means to let people get away with their dysfunctional behavior. It means to let them indulge in their artificial ego constructs. And if there is a great Buddhist teacher, of course he will have some discernment. Yeah? Might be a she. Yeah? So that teacher might have some discernment. And there is already a discernment between lay people and people who are ordained, who will, instead of using the practice to enhance their life, they use their life to enhance the practice. So they are full-timers. That's a very different attitude. And with full-timers, we cannot be nice. Because full-timers need to take responsibility for other sentient beings. They need to make difficult ethical and moral choices on a daily basis. So if they are not utterly honest with themselves and can face their own hidden shadow aspects in all areas of life without hesitation, then they will cause great harm in their interaction with people. And a true teacher cannot be nice. Because imagine this. You live in a prison cell, but you don't know that you live in a prison cell. There are metal bars, you touch these metal bars, and you're convinced that these metal bars are you. Now, how does it serve you if I'm nice to these metal bars that keep you imprisoned? Well, if you believe you are these metal bars and I'm not nice to them, you will feel offended. But at least I shook you. At least I irritated your belief system. So you have a chance to doubt it. But if I don't doubt it for you, if I don't question it, if I don't question your prison, that is your ego construct, and you confuse it for yourself, you identify with it. If I don't question it, you're imprisoned in it forever. So I'm questioning it for you, and I'm willing to take the heat for it. Because if I'm compassionate, this is what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to face your aggression, your frustration, whatever it is that you want to project on me as a teacher. You want to project this on me and say it's not mine, it's yours. And I know it's happening. And I know it will be happening. Compassion means to not support people in their imprisonment, in their egoic constructs that they have created, because out of trauma they have made the choice to not be authentic, but instead they made the choice to be nice, to conform, to fit in, to submit. I remember a German psychoanalyst who was quite well known, Erich Fromm. He used to say it's not a measure of health to be well adapted to a sick society. And neurosis is normal. It is normal to be stuck in your ego. So everybody, because they don't want to take the heat, don't challenge people's egos. And this is why the majority of spiritual practices, if they are nice, they're completely ineffective. They make you feel good. You might spend some money, you get some ritual, you get some spiritual tourism, you get some spiritual entertainment. You might enjoy that. And your ego has some pleasure and it feels, yeah, that was a very healing experience. But it's not a healing experience if you're not shook to the core. If nobody's rattling your cage. So to be compassionate often means to do the difficult thing. To call out other practitioners' hidden narcissism, to call out their avoidances, to call out their shames. To make them aware that the reason that they have pride, because deep down they believe that they are not lovable, so they believe that they're not enough, so they're creating an artificial I that is the ego that is then supposed to be enough, because they themselves can't. And of course, when you point that out, they're going to break down, they're going to cry. But there's a choice that they need to make deep down within themselves. If they can take this intensity of pointing out, they will progress quickly in their spiritual practice. But it takes an attitude of non-avoidance, and non-avoidance is Zen. When we sit in meditation, our attitude is not to reject any experience and also not to add anything to it. What do I mean by that? It's the whole non-reactive attitude. So if a thought is arising, instead of adding to it by jumping on this train of thought, now I add more thought to it. Not to reject it, that means I try to discipline it. Instead, I just stay in the neutral position and I'm willing to witness anything that I have to witness to come to a complete understanding of something. And I'm making a vow, not only to the Buddha or to God, but to myself, to sit through whatever I have to sit through in order to achieve realization. And that means whatever pains come with it, I need to accept. And I cannot say 80% of my ego can be touched, 80% of my ego can be analyzed and exposed, but there's a special 20% nobody's allowed to touch. And when they do, I rage, I get mad, or I slander my teacher behind his back. And then I say all these nasty things about my teacher that are actually existing in myself. So it is profoundly important to understand, if you're very, very comfortable with your spiritual teacher is not teaching you. Teaching is often a very painful experience. Not because a proper teacher is trying to consciously hurt us, quite the opposite, but he will point to the hurt that we're already having. And the hurt that the ego is in denial of, that the ego is trying to suppress. One time I had a very difficult choice to make. One of my friends that I dearly cared about was trapped in some sort of delusion, a vengeful energy. And that vengeful energy was stopping this friend of mine from spiritually progressing. One evening I was taking a walk, and there was a beautiful orange light from the street lamps and trees around, and was walking at a river. And a spiritual being manifested next to me and started having a conversation. We spoke about many topics. And then this being said, about your friend. This friend of yours needs to give up these grudges with regards to a certain target group in human society in order to advance spiritually. Now I knew when I would be telling that to this particular friend, this would be highly likely the end of the friendship. Yeah? So on a compassionate level, I needed to say this for the soul to advance. But in order for the soul to advance, the ego needs to be offended. There's no two ways about it. So I chose to offend that particular ego because I care for the soul more than for the illusion of the psychological construct. But before I made that choice, somebody came to me in meditation a few days before. I was sitting on a park bench and contemplating certain matters. And this being said to me, it is a little bit like this, like it is in the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu scripture. When the prince Arjuna had to make a choice about going to battle against his brothers or not, and Krishna said, well, kind of basically said, if you're being nice right now, you're tolerating the demonic in your kingdom, and it will grow and it will fester. So that being then said to me, like Arjuna, come to the following understanding. Have no mercy for the illusions of your friends, because that is not compassionate. If you have mercy with the illusions of your friends, if you're being nice with them, you are basically supporting their prison. You are being an enabler. So you need to shoot the illusions of your friends without mercy. And that is mercy. This is a deep, deep spiritual understanding in there. So in order to free the souls, we need to offend the egos, because the egos are not real. And to be nice means to enable people in their egoic behavior so the soul cannot achieve liberation. Contemplate about that, my friends. Thank you for listening. Be well.